Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to one of my Devon series. We haven't been to County of Devon for, well, a little while, have we? Hoping to do quite a few videos in this area. I'm staying in the area. I'm here in the village of Thurleston, which is right on the South Devon coast in the South Hams, not far from the town of Kingsbridge. And the reason I brought you here is because next to this village is another village. And it has a personal connection to me because for many years I lived in it. And the name of that village? South Milton. So we're going to head on now to the coast path. Now the villages of Thurleston and South Milton couldn't be more different really. In recent years Thurleston has become more grown up, more developed with retirement homes. There is a large hotel which has actually been there for a number of years. It's quite a posh hotel, the Thurleston Hotel. And also on the edge of the villages, which is where I'm walking to at the moment, there is quite a famous golf course. But South Milton is a lot more traditional. It's proper Devon rural. I hope to give you a tour of the village a little bit later. The weather is very, very iffy today, so I'm not sure how we're going to get on with filming. It's stopped at the moment, but there could be thunder and lightning and heavy showers later on, but you just have to kind of go with that. We're going to head down now to meet up with the coast path. And South Milton is interesting because, as well as the village itself, which is about 1.5 miles from the coastline, it has a very spectacular beach called South Milton Sands Beach, which is looked after by the National Trust. And there is an arch there, a bit similar to Durdle Door, called the Thurleston Arch. Also near there is a nature reserve. And I'd like to show you that as well, because it's a fantastic habitat for bird life, particularly in the winter time. So I hope you can join me for this wander today here in South Devon. It's been, well, quite a number of years since I lived here in South Milton, and while I was living in South Milton I was actually working in Plymouth, which is about 20 miles to the west of South Milton. So you kind of join it on the Kingsbridge Road, head into that way. So I used to work night shifts there in Plymouth, and often in the evening before I went to work I would walk on the beach here in South Milton. So let's go and have a look now at the beach and the coastline. So I'm now not on South Milton Sands Beach, but Thurleston Beach, and I believe that Thurleston Beach is owned by Thurleston Golfmen. And over there you can see Thurleston Rock with its famous arch upon it. And there is a really nice walk from here which connects Thurleston Beach to South Milton Sands Beach, which is where we're going to be heading to next. Now, just to give you an indication how strong the winds can get in these parts, look at that tree. Pretty much parallel to the ground with the strength of the wind. Also here is something which shows up erosion very, very clearly. What I'm standing on used to be the road. I remember when I moved to South Milton, this was the road here, and it gave way. I think it was something like 10 or 15 years ago now, just to show you a bit closer. So there was the road, completely washed away in a storm, not unlike one that's heading our way at the moment. Now the good news about that is that it has allowed this new sand dune habitat to be formed. So the road was kind of there, rather it's not there now, but it's now an important sand dune habit, which I do believe is managed and looked after by the golf course itself. Now, as you can see there from the famous acorn symbol, which doesn't actually mean Southwest Coast Path, it means National Trail. You'll come across it in other places in England, including the Pennine Way and many others. But we're on the 630 miles long Southwest Coast Path here, near South Milton. Now, it's not officially known as South Milton Sands Bay, but it could be. But the wider cove here is known as Hope Cove. Right down over that side, the other side of the Thurleston Arch, is the village of Hope Cove, or more properly, Upper and Lower Hope. Hope to take you there one day, because that's a fantastic village. But it is a breathtaking view. I'm just walked up the hill from Thurleston Sands Beach, just taking it in, bringing back memories of when I lived here, walking on the beach before I went to work. And sometimes I would stop off here after a night shift just to blow the cobwebs away before I snuggled into my bed for the day. And in that direction we're looking back towards Thurleston Beach, and then beyond that there's a couple more beaches, one I've forgotten, and then it takes you on to Bantham and Bigbury Island, and eventually it'll take you on to Plymouth. I wonder what the attraction is to that post for all those snails being on it. That's incredible. Now sadly there is a car park here at South Milton above the cliffs. You could also park in the village, but parking is quite limited there, has to be said. Oh, I will head down there later. And I remember when that used to be free, and it was bought a few years ago. Now you have to pay, I think it's at least £1 for just an hour, and it's got one of those ANPR, is it called, where it reads your registration. So yeah, there's no getting away with it. That's why I parked up by the church in Thurleston and walked along the coast path. Anyway, we're going to make our way down now to South Milton Sands Beach. There's a set of steps over there which literally go to nowhere, and you can see where the coastline has been shored up over the years with various different projects with varying degrees of success. Now at low tide you can actually walk round to Thurleston Beach following the sand, but it's quite high and it's very, very rough today, so even at low tide I wouldn't attempt that today. It's very, very gusty here. I was hoping to put my tripod up to do kind of walking shots, give you some other shots talking to the camera, but that isn't going to happen today because it's just so gusty. It's probably about 40-50 mile an hour winds, and then it dies down a little bit and then it's like really, really strong. So I don't want to risk my camera on a tripod today, but hoping you can hear me above the wind noise as well. And apologies for the slightly shaky camera work because of all these gusts of wind, but it doesn't take away from the fact this is still a very, very beautiful place. And I feel like a tingle going down my spine now as I walk back on South Milton Sands Beach, which I say was effectively my home beach for, well, at least a couple of years. And I'll tell you in a moment how I came to be living here. Well, I know one thing, there's no way I'd like to be out in that sea today, surfing or hiking. Now, the rock over there, Thurleston Rock, the one with the arch, the famous arch, that is used in calmer conditions, of course, by canoeists, because they love going canoeing through the centre of the arch. South Milton and South Milton Sands, though, don't appear much on YouTube at all. I don't think there's any video about the village that I could find. It has an interesting church and it's got a connection to me as well. I'll talk about that. But one of the few things that does appear on YouTube about South Milton Sands is Thurleston Rock and canoeists that use it. It must be a spectacular thing to do. I think they can put up GoPros on their heads as they're going through, so you get some spectacular shots there. Also spectacular though is this, which is like a runoff from the nature reserve, and it's called a ley, L-E-Y, and it does a very odd thing as we'll investigate further. So this is South Milton Sands Lane. As you can see, it is like a lake, a lagoon if you like. It does have a blue colour. Well, when it's a blue sunny day, not today when it's very grey and overcast. But that bit there breaks through occasionally. Usually does that a couple of the times of the year. Well, where's this water coming from? Well, it comes from the village. There is a stream and a very marshy area towards the back of the church, that area in South Milton, and it's now a wonderful nature habitat. But you have this linking bridge, which, well, I'm not sure when it was built actually, which takes you over the lay itself, continuation of the coast path, because sometimes you can't get it across the sand because there is a breach and water pouring down into the sea, but not at the moment. Now, because we've had a lot of rain, the level of water in the lay here is quite high. You can see it's sand all the way through there, and often it drops down to about, well, where my finger is now, to allow you to walk across the edge of it and then climb up onto the bridge. But we'll have to retrace our steps, I feel, to continue our walk along the coast path to explore South Milton Sands further. Now, one of the reasons that makes South Milton Sands, indeed this area around to Salcombe and all that area around there, is one again hope to show you at some future point here on West Country Wanderings, one of my favourite haunts. I have done a video on Overbecks though, which is a National Trust property just outside of Salcombe. That's a beautiful place, and the reason that flourishes, tropical gardens there, as well as here, is because it's generally mild. But not only is it mild, there is also a very, very dry climate. That sounds a bit strange. No, it's not a desert sand here, but the climate here, South Milton and Salcombe, is a lot drier than what it is further to the west around Plymouth. And the reason for that is Dartmoor. Yes, Dartmoor, because at the height of it can actually encourage the rain to come down. But yeah, so it's quite a dry place, which makes it a great place to live as well. So how come did I end up living here if I was working in Plymouth? Well, at that time I was actually married and I was living in a house that we'd purchased. Well, actually it was a maisonette. It was close to some woods, but it was still quite an urban environment, and we felt we wanted to move somewhere that was more rural and indeed quieter. And we looked initially at renting somewhere after we sold the house, like an interim, to see where we wanted to buy. And we looked at various different properties, and this one come up, South Milton. I'd not actually been to South Milton before, vaguely heard of it, and I arrived here and I was quite taken with the place. You know, you have the estate agent tour around it, and it's in a little cul-de-sac. And I'll show you where it is. I won't show the exact property because obviously for privacy reasons, but I can show you the area where I live there in the village. And the other thing about the village is it's very, very friendly, or certainly was when I was living here. It has a real sense of community. A lot of coastal places, that's quite unusual these days because of B&B properties, second homes, that sort of thing. And I think that's the case in nearby Thurleston, but it certainly wasn't when I was living in South Milton, and I do hope that is still the case. Though there's no pub there, or no shop, there was occasionally an interim pub in the village hall, and there were lots of events for the community to get together as well. So yeah, I got really involved in that, and I felt, even though I wasn't from the area, I felt I had a connection to it. And we're making our way round now to the National Trust car park, where there is actually a cafe. I don't know if it's open today. I have got provisions with me in case not, but I'll show you that anyway, show you where it is, and I'll put a link to their website because they used to serve really, really excellent food there as well. But yeah, it's just a wonderful spot, and it certainly blows the cobwebs after a drive down the M5 early in the morning like I had this morning. It's still only about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I left Gloucestershire before 5 this morning, so I avoided all the heavy traffic. So yeah, it's really good just to come here again once more and experience the pleasures of South Milton Sands. So this is the beach house here at South Milton Sands, which indeed looks like it's serving breakfasts here today. And yes, it has quite a view. Very quiet in a midweek in mid-October. But you can imagine it gets very busy in the summertime. So yes, one National Trust car park here at South Milton Sands, but very empty today. There's only 2 cars in it down the far end. So there is an information board here. You can do lots of walks. Obviously I've come around from Thurleston, Leesfoot Sand, that was the name of the other beach next to Thurleston Sands that I couldn't think the name of. Then it goes out to Warren Point, and you can carry on walking around to Bantham, which is a beautiful place in itself. But Thurleston, you have, as I say, you have the hotel, and I think there's a cafe there by the post office. And there are pubs in Inner and Outer Hope as well, and I think there's a couple of cafes there. You can also walk around to Bolt Tail, where there's an Iron Age fort, and it's good to see that they've also published here the tide tables. So today is Tuesday, the 8th of October, and it's 9:24 high tide, which is, well, it's just literally just gone, and low tide will be at 15:38. We're coming up to 20 to 4 this afternoon. So yeah, you do have to pay for parking here. I think it is free for National Trust members though. And at the moment is £6 all day or £3 after 4 o'clock, and then from November, from next month, it's £3 all day. Just go over here though to have a look at South Milton Ley, because there's some cattle in it as well. So this is the South Hewish Wetland Reserve. Now South Milton Reserve is the one where you saw the ley. Remember I said that it comes and goes. We're breaching the sandbank there, and it's a runoff from the village itself. But South Hewish is a little hamlet which is in the crook of the valley there. It's round about there, and it has an interesting ruined church. I don't know if we'll be able to have a look at that later or not. But this is the reserve. The local farmer, they actually graze some Angus cattle here, so that's always good to see. It's always fun to see them. You don't want to get on the wrong side of the horns though, and there is a calf there as well. But you can also see buzzards here, widgeon, little egrets, garganers, snipes, sheldocks, house martins, wheatears. It's a real haven for bird life. What I really need to do is put my telephoto lens and put it on a tripod, but unfortunately it's just too windy at the moment to do that very thing. But I used to park up here, my National Trust badge, and you could park with a windscreen facing right out into the reserve, and it'd be nice just to sit there for an hour with the windows down on a nice day, hearing all the birds and watching them through a pair of binoculars coming and going here at South Hewish Wetland Reserve. Well, we've got rain coming inbound now. Any minute now it's going to chuck it down, looking at the heavy laden skies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my camera away for the moment. It's not the end of the video though. I will see you in a bit. I'm going to walk back to Thurleston now to drive around to South Milton village itself to show you around there. Well, like I was doing the walk the other day in the Cotswolds, I've had to shelter underneath the porch of the church here at All Saints in the village of South Milton. The weather did break briefly and I had a wander around the village itself, and as I'm talking I'll insert some photographs of this most beautiful village of South Milton here in the South Hams of Devon as I'm talking to you. Really enjoyed that wander around here. The church itself was actually constructed around the early 1300s. In fact, there's a list at the side of this door here of all the vicars. The first one I think was 1303 or 1309. Now when I arrived here, the vicar was one Daniel Hartley. He came here around 2013. He'd actually come from being a chaplain in a prison in Yorkshire, I do believe, if memory serves me. I think it may have been Sheffield. He was a brilliant vicar for this area here. Covered a few other parishes as well, benefices that they're called. I think it was 5 or 6 of them in total. But yeah, he kind of was brilliant in kind of bringing this community together. I didn't think they had a vicar for a little while, so it was good they had a really one. Sadly, he's left now. He's gone on to pastures new. Not sure where he's gone on to, but there is a new vicar here now. I'll put his name in down the bottom there below. There is actually a South Milton parish magazine which comes out once a month, and you could obtain copies of that from the church here in South Milton. A couple of things to mention about the church. First of all, the spectacular Norman font has an incredible engraving which I've not seen anyone else. If you're into your fonts and like looking at them when you're going around churchyards, yeah, it's amazing. There's a really good one here in South Milton. The other incredible thing is the rood screen, neatly carved. It was actually repainted in the early to mid 19th century, I do believe. It's well looking out for. Just brilliant. I'm not sure if it's like the famous sisters, Pinwell sisters, I think they were called, who did a lot of work in the churches in Devon. I'm not sure if it was their handiwork or not. Underneath, though, the rood screen, you have this amazing medieval paintings as well. I think 2 were missing. They got stolen many years ago. But yeah, look out for those if you decide to come here to South Milton. I can highly recommend a wander around the village if you decide to have a look down there at the beach. Now, as I was leaving South Hewish Nature Reserve, and I walked past South Milton Nature Reserve, I noticed a new footpath, which meant that you can now walk through that nature reserve. Didn't used to be able to do that, so there is a new access. It's not a right of way, but it takes you through the reserve itself. Sadly, it was too wet to do that. If the weather brightens up on my stay down here in Devon, I would like to do that as a separate walk. So watch this space for that one. Hopefully, I'll be able to do something along those lines. But yeah, lovely village. The village hall was really nice, and I lived in a place called Backshay Close. It's there's there used to be a phone box there when I was there. It's gone now, but I knew it was being decommissioned when I was living there. And there is a nice seat there with a beautiful tree, and that tree is always decorated at Christmas time. It always looks really lovely. So I was in that cul-de-sac there, but as you can see, a lot of the village has thatched cottages as well, and it's not a wealthy, it's not an incomers type of village. It hasn't been taken over by incomers. These are people that lived in the village and the surrounding areas for many, many years. It's not just a retirement flux, and it's very different to Thurlestone, which is literally just only a mile and a half away along the coastline. So I hope you've enjoyed this explore and little wander. I would like to have taken you around a little bit more of the village itself here, but unfortunately it is rather inclement today. But it's a really, really beautiful place, and I really enjoyed my 2.5 years living here in South Milton in Devon before I moved on towards Dartmouth, and I then transferred to the store in Brixham, catching the ferry every day, but that's another story. You should know about that. If you follow the channel, you'll know that that's where West Country Wanderings started, in the town of Dartmouth. That was video number 1 when I was living there, Dartmouth, and then I was commuting over to Brixham. But yeah, many happy memories here. Hope you enjoyed this video today. Love to know your thoughts on it. If you visited South Milton, I'd love to be really interested in it, or if you've been down to the beach and got memories of that as well, love to know your thoughts. Anyway, until next time, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you on the channel again very, very soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Goodbye.